those experiences helped me grow and develop as a mom, as a friend, as a daughter, as a child of God.
Well, welcome to The Ruckus, where we talk about being a person of influence and how you can impact the culture and the world around you. I'm joined here today by Nicole. We've worked together for about 10 years, right? You're a wife and a mother of 4. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, man. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of 4. No, I'm a mom. I have 4 boys. Mm-hmm. Life is chaotic. I function in chaos, which I mean, you know, we've been working together for a decade now. So,
that's crazy to think it's been a decade.
It really actually is. I'm like, man.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your life 10 years ago?
10 years ago. Oh, man. I moved back from Bakersfield. I lived in Bakersfield for a little bit, and it was lonely. It was a lot of distance away from family. I'd never lived away from family like that. So it was hard. And, you know, we made it about 10 months, and then we ended up moving back home to the area. And at the time, I was trying to get my old job back. I used to work for the state parks, and they were on hiring freeze. So my mom worked with Alicia, Ryan's daughter, and she was leaving the theater, and my mom was talking about how I moved back and that I was looking for a job, and Alicia recommended that I go and apply there. And so I was like, had no idea what the place was. I actually thought they made bags. And then I walk in there for an application, and I walk in and I see Ed, and Ed's like so inviting. He's so sweet. And go in, and I'm walking through the building. I'm like, what are they doing here? The vibe when I walked in there, the vibe there was very interesting, because it was back when we used to take lunch breaks together. And so you had a bunch of people outside eating together, playing hacky sack. Yep. And so I was like, what is this place? Like, why is everybody so happy? So I went in there and I met Bo, and Bo was like, yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's really nice. And I feel like you can just like fall into easy conversation with him. And then I left, and he called me like a couple hours later and told me I got the job. And I was like, oh, okay. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to be great at it.
Nailed it.
I did. Yeah. I did nail it. It took me a second, but yeah, I started from production and then just kind of worked my way up. I like puzzles. So it's like, I get into production, and, we are assembling stuff, and I'm seeing like issues with, electronics, and then I'm like, can I play with that? Can I figure out what's wrong with this? And so kind of just like grew from there. And then I feel like I was outgrowing what I was doing on the floor. And I was like, okay, like, where can I be utilized somewhere else in the company? I want to grow. I want to develop as a person. And so I started like expressing my interest, and went and talked to Bo about it. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, what are your skills? And I'm like, I don't know. And then, he goes, well, how about you like go home, you think on it, and you like, sleep on it, and we'll talk about it again tomorrow. And I'm like, all right. And so I go home, and I'm like thinking about what I'm good at. And I'm like, I'm good at problem solving. I'm good at organizing in chaos, I guess. And so I'm like, what could I do with the skills that I have? And so I started realizing quickly that our company had an inventory issue. And so I was like, maybe I can ask him about doing something along those lines. And so I brought it up, and then he was like, hey, you want to come in on weekends? Do you want to, how about a couple hours during the work days? And so I just kind of started dabbling in that, and I was really good at it. And I just kept learning. And next thing you know, I'm doing inventory management. And then inventory management kind of spiraled into a bigger role, because we all wear multiple hats there. I feel like it's hard not to pick up different jobs or duties when you're working in your areas kind of overlaps everywhere. And I find more messes or more problems. And then I kind of just start learning more and more and more. And I'm doing like more supply chain management now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely glad you did. I mean, that you resonate with inventory, because I remember we were having a lot of those issues. And for me, that's like someone's in my head scraping the back of my eyelids. That's what that stuff feels like to me. So when we heard, hey, Nicole, she's going to start doing inventory, I was like, let's go.
You're like, all right, somebody's
yes, relief.
Actually wanting to take care of that mess.
Yep. Whatever she asks, whatever she demands, give to her now.
Paperwork.
Yep. Except for paperwork from me, but from everyone else, yes.
Right.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, so you said you moved to Bakersfield for a while and then you came back. Mm-hmm. Where are you originally from?
I'm actually originally from this area. Not necessarily Santa Maria, but I kind of grew up and was moving around within like Oceano, Rio Grande. And then for a while, my family life is kind of chaotic. So I was born here and I did a move to San Diego for a bit, lived in Long Beach, moved back here, and then moved back to Long Beach, grew up elementary, middle school in Long Beach, and then moved back here for my high school years. So,
why did you move so much?
My very chaotic family life. I had a very like unstable and chaotic home. So, there was alcohol abuse, substance abuse, addiction issues, and just like brokenness, like within the family unit. So, like I'd be here with my mom and my dad because my dad lived here with his family. And then my mom would take us and we'd go to San Diego to live with my aunt for a while. And then from there, it was like we'd stop in Long Beach. My grandma and my uncle lived there, and then back with my dad. And then when they finally divorced, separated, my mom took us and we're living in Long Beach, not really understanding what was going on. It was more like my dad took us to visit my mom one day, and my mom just never returned us to my dad. So I was like, can I go home now? No. You can't go home. Yeah. So it was very chaotic, and, I wasn't allowed to, like, we weren't really allowed to ask questions and get, like, from answers. It was like, where's my dad? And it's like, oh, your dad's not here. Can I go with my dad? No, don't ask anymore. So I grew up, like, kind of not really understanding or being able to process what I was feeling, and it was chaotic. Yeah. So that's why I feel like I function in chaos, and I like problem solving, and I like relating and talking and sharing experiences with people, because I've learned a lot. I learned a lot after having kids. I'm like, when I had Damien, he's my oldest, he's 15 and a half now. I got pregnant when I was 19 and gave birth to him when I was 20, and having somebody that was more important than than myself, because I felt like I grew up, and in my teen years, I felt like my feelings mattered more than anything in the world, and my problems were the biggest problems. And then I had a kid, and it's like this person mattered more to me than he kind of helped me heal and realize things about myself, because I think that, when you grow up in a home where you don't really have like a normal relationship with your parents, like they didn't have like a mother figure, and I kind of grew up feeling like my mom prioritized other things over her children, and not really understanding that as a kid, because I feel like you don't really have the maturity to understand or process your feelings, so you kind of like tuck them away, and you kind of tuck them away. Yeah. And by the time I entered motherhood, and I felt like in ways like I was kind of, what's the word, trying to overcome things that I was doing that would remind me of my mom. Like, because I feel like you kind of fall in that cycle, like where you kind of do the same thing. And I would do things and I would sit there and I would be so upset with myself and I would be hard on myself as a mom. Because I'm like, am I like my mom? Am I making him feel the way that my mom made me feel? And so then I started kind of reflecting back and allowing myself to be hurt about stuff that being in motherhood opened up about my childhood. So I had to like overcome and deal and process those feelings later in life because I'm like opening up that kind of Pandora's box of feelings and having to actually process them. And it's like years later. Like, and then on top of that, I'm actually trying to be a good mom. It was a struggle. And I think more of a struggle because I actually lost my mom when I was in my teen years. I lost her when I was 13. So even though those things were resurfacing, I didn't have her to talk to about any of the big feelings that I was feeling. So I feel like, you know, I've had to overcome those things on my own and finding other people to talk to because I'm not able to kind of get that, closure from her or from being able to discuss those big feelings that I feel like would have been nice if I still had her around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said she passed when you were 13. Were you guys on good terms when she passed? Was it? What was your guys' relationship like at that time?
My mom was a very interesting person. She was the sweetest person in the world, but she was a mess. And I grew up with that at such a young age, and I like adored my mom. I loved the type of person that she was. She was very social, got along with everybody, but she was very broken. And through my childhood, she treated me more like I was her little best friend than like being a mother figure for me. So it's like I understood all her hurts and her pain. She would cry to me about stuff. She would vent stuff to me. And, you know, I look back and as a kid, I didn't really understand what was going on, but I felt her pain. And so even though she struggled with, you know, addiction and she would prioritize certain things over me, she was like, I still thought she was an amazing person. I just thought she was hurt. And I felt like even at a young age, I knew like hurt people, unfortunately hurt people. So my relationship with her was good, but I definitely carried a lot of hurt that I don't feel like I was able to actually talk to her about because she was very broken. Yeah, she struggled with she was either very drunk or very high a good chunk of the time. And so trying to catch her when she was sober was very hard. Sure. And it caused a lot of pain to even try to have conversations like that with her. So I felt like I wasn't able to actually like have good communication with her. So I remember I used to go on camping trips every year for my birthday. When I first moved here with my dad and my stepmom, they would always ask me what I wanted to do for my birthday, and I'm like, oh, I want to go camping for a week. It's very calming and very relaxing, and I feel like you get to really just kind of slow down and just like be with family. So I always wanted to go camping, and I have always been an organizer, so I was like, I'll pack everything. I'll organize all the meals. I'll make sure I have all the lists down, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember my mom called, and my mom was like wanting to talk to me. And she was like, this was back when she used to have to go to the store to go get a calling card, and she would call me. And I was on the phone with her. I was like packing stuff up, and I was like trying to like talk to her, but she's kind of like scatterbrained, not really making a whole lot of sense, but just wanting to talk to me because she loved me. And I remember feeling like I just need to pack this stuff because I'm leaving tomorrow. And I'm like trying to talk to her while I'm doing what I'm doing. And the call drops. And that normally meant that her card ran out of minutes. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Like, talk to her later. And then she called me back like 10 minutes later. And one of my family members, I'm not sure exactly who picked up the phone. And I was like, tell her I'm busy. Like, tell her I can't talk right now. And then they were like, oh, Nicole's not available right now, but she said she'll call you back when we get back from camping. And so that was the last time I talked to my mom, unfortunately. I went camping for my birthday, came back, and I had turned my cell phone off because obviously you go camping and you don't really get good sleep out there. You're sleeping on the floor. I turned my phone off so I could sleep good, and I just remember getting woken up in the middle of the night, and my stepmom and my cousin woke me up, and they told me that my mom passed away. And so I have a lot of regret from not talking to her when I could have, Yeah. Sorry. Oh, real talk. Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like, like at a really young age, I realized that a loss is one of the hardest things to overcome. And, you can overcome like, whatever hardships or, childhood traumas. I feel like those wounds are easy to kind of cut open and try to process. But, once I lost my mom, I think that was probably one of the deepest hurts that I had to overcome. And navigating through that's been rough. Yeah. And, you think that once it happens and you process it and they always say time heals and you move through life, then things happen later on in life. Like I become a mom, and then, you start thinking about the past and about your relationship with your parent, and they're not here anymore and you can't talk to them. And it's like that pain just keeps resurfacing,
Sure.
Yeah. I don't even know how we got here.
Oh. Wow. So, man, I didn't know that about your experience with your mom.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can imagine that being a mom
Yeah.
is constantly
A little stab.
pushing that.
It's like constantly kind of like cutting open a wound that probably wasn't healed properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that wound is healed some? Do you feel...
I feel like when it comes to trauma, I don't feel like those wounds, and even like loss, I just don't feel like the wounds ever really heal fully. I feel like as you navigate through life, sometimes that wound gets re-cut open. But I feel like it's a part of kind of the human experience. So I always call it. It's a part of the human experience, and, like trying to overcome whatever season that your life is in. I've had it kind of resurface like when I had children, and then, I think I'm fine. And then, the wound kind of resurfaces when I'm at a certain point in my kids' lives that kind of trigger back memories from me and my mom. When my oldest turned 13, it kind of hit me that I lost my mom at that age. And I'm like looking at him, I'm like, I'm grateful that you still have your mom. That's me. But like, I'm still grateful you have me, because at your age, I lost my mom, and I would hate like to ever see my kids kind of have to experience that type of pain. Like, you don't really wish that pain on anybody. And I don't know. I don't really feel like it's something that heals. I feel like it's something that you just learn to manage and cope with. It's like, as long as you take care of the wound, like it's there, but just take care of it. Don't think that it's ever just fully healed. It's not fully healed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what a scar
Yeah.
is.
A scar.
You know, it's the wound can close up a bit, but there's always, right on my arm, I have a scar. This is from when I was 9 years old. I still see it. I still remember it. I still remember every time I see it. What it was like being in the cast, being in the hospital. Remember a lot of those experiences. It just, when I see it, it kind of, my brain flashes there. But an observation that I've made, and I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please tell me. You know, and you've shared a couple of other stories with me. You know, maybe in another take we'll talk about some of those. But one of your gifts that I would say you have is that you're someone who's present. Right? We'll use that word that you used earlier. Is you're really good at being present for people. It's funny because I walk by your office, and it used to be mine and Paul's office, but now it's your office where people, I just hear them just talking about life and sharing things.
I love that.
Yeah, we've passed the torch. No.
Yay, thanks.
You know, from my perspective, it seems that, yeah, you've come from a lot of pain and dysfunction, and that kind of stuff is the stuff that we process for life. But it seems like you've kind of found a way to, even if internally you haven't completely healed, it seems like you've almost turned that into a tool that you use to help other people.
Yeah.
Why don't you maybe tell me whether you think that's true and maybe explain a little bit?
Yeah, I have a lot of experiences. I've been part of the human experience. And, yeah, like I'm very present. I feel like I was telling you earlier, I feel like people who are stressed or hurt or struggling with anxiety or anxious or whatever the trauma feeling that you're feeling, I feel like you can't help but recognize that in other people. So like now that I've experienced all those different things, I can see when other people carry the weight of something, and I can't help but like feel like, oh, I need to pry, not for any personal gain other than being able to like uplift them in the moment, just because I know how hard life is. And sometimes we just need to like be there and be a blessing for somebody else. Because I feel like even with all the hurt and the pain, and even though I feel like, you know, they're not full, my scars aren't fully healed, my wounds aren't healed, I've been blessed with people and good relationships, and the people that have like really like been there for me, supported me, and uplifted me. And even when I was causing chaos myself, they were there by my side, just saying like, hey, I know you're a good person, you're making bad decisions, like, and doing what they could to kind of help me kind of do better, be better, have more of a growth mentality. And because of that, and because of the help I've gotten from other people, I feel like I want to do that and be that for other people. So I like talking and having real talk and having vulnerable talks, and just using my experience to kind of relate to others, because a lot of people are amazingly surprised by some of the stories that I shared. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know why it's not like, oh, let me talk about all my trauma. I kind of in ways feel like when I do that, it's like I'm looking for like somebody's pity or something. And I don't want anybody to pity me, because I want to seem strong and capable and put together. But when I see hurt people, I'm like, all right, I'll share a little bit of some of the stuff that I carry. If it can help them, it makes me feel like what I went through can be a blessing or a tool. I feel like kind of like the experiences I've gone through, they've made it possible for God to utilize me and be a blessing in somebody else's life. Yeah. Gives me a better understanding on how to have like grace for other people and how to have like mercy for other people and just how to love people better. Because I feel like sometimes that the lack of that causes more problems than if you can just give that to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you shared a little bit about, what happened with your mom. Now, you were living with your dad at this time?
Mm-hmm.
What was your relationship with your dad like?
When I moved with him?
Yeah.
Or before or after?
Both.
Before my mom took us to Long Beach, I was a daddy's girl. I adored my dad. I always wanted my dad. I wanted to be around my dad. I was his little princess. So we had a very good relationship. I think that the lack of communication on what was going on hurt as a kid. And, when I'm constantly saying like, hey, Dad, can I live with you? My dad, I didn't understand, was trying to gain custody of us. And whenever he went back and he was like, hey, she wants to live with me, like it kind of turned back on me in a negative way because my uncle, he was very abusive. So he would punish us for...
This was your uncle on your mom's side?
The uncle on my mom's side. So I lived with my mom, my uncle, my nana, and then later on, my mom's sister, my aunt, she moved in with her kids. So I had 3 cousins that also lived with us at some point. And my uncle was a very difficult guy. He was like into like drugs, gang, and he was just, very physically abusive, not even just to us as kids, but I watched him abuse like my mom, like fight with my grandma. My aunt, though, she was awesome. My aunt would grab a baseball bat and she'd be like, come at me. She was my hero when I was growing up, because I was like, she's a fighter. I want to be like her when I grow up. But yeah, when I would ask to live with my dad would tell my mom, and it would get back to my uncle, and we'd get home and he'd pour Tabasco sauce down my throat. Yeah, pretty intense, right?
Wow.
And I'd be crying and crying, my throat would be on fire, and he'd be like, I don't want to hear you, ask that anymore. And so over time I stopped asking, and I started kind of building a resentment towards my dad. But it's not his fault, it was just at the time I couldn't process what was going on and the lack of communication and being punished for things without somebody telling me what I did wrong. So by the time I moved with him, I harbored a lot of resentment, a lot of hurt feelings. And I was one of those kids where when he finally brought me over, I was like, I'm going to run away. I'm going to melt all the plastic in the house. I would say some very kind of out there things, but I literally wanted to destroy the home that he was trying to offer me out of a place of hurt. And it took me a long time to heal and to get to a point. And that's where I say when I had my kids helped me heal, because as I'm navigating and growing and going through life experiences, I started realizing how much my dad actually struggled. And as I started hearing his stories as I got older, I started realizing that my dad fell into debt trying to get lawyers, trying to get custody of us. And I just didn't know that stuff. And my mom was hitting him with child support, and he was trying to be a present dad. So he'd be working 2 jobs, and he'd be driving down to Long Beach during Christmas, spring break, summer vacation. He would take us for, weeks, months. But he had to bring us back because my mom had custody of us. She was on the welfare program. She was getting everything, cash aid, child support, and then on top of that, my dad was a good person. So my dad was giving her money, cash when he would come visit. So my dad was kind of blood a little dry. And he wasn't a U.S. citizen, so he struggled with being here illegally and not feeling like he had any like rights to us. And coming to that realization when I'm older makes me feel bad for, being angry or having that resentment against him as a kid, because I didn't know what he was struggling with. And I feel like, a lot of times, like, you don't really know what other people are carrying or struggling with. And it's so important to have like grace, mercy, and love and understanding for people. And it's something that I've just kind of over and over and over again learned. My dad had his paperwork, like his green card, but my mom ripped it up. So my mom just made things very difficult for my dad. My dad recently got his citizenship, and it was like a huge deal for him, for like struggling with all the stuff that he's struggled with over the years with that.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship with your dad like now?
I love my dad, but he's also a very hard man. He's Filipino, so he has like very traditional Filipino like values. And, even though that he moved here when he was, I want to say 18, it's not like he was influenced by like American culture in any way. It's like he learned how to speak English and all that, but my dad he grew up with his cultural values and, women cook, clean, so I kind of grew up in a household where my dad made me feel like I had a certain role and I had to be in that role. So, which I appreciate now because, it made me respect what it really kind of means to be a woman, because I didn't grow up in, like, from my mom's side, I didn't really grow up with that, what's the word?
That example or that model.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with that example or that model. Like, that wasn't modeled to me before. So, even though I felt like my dad was harder on me as a girl growing up because I have 3 brothers. So, I mean, we didn't necessarily all grow up together all the time. We kind of had our own different experiences and stuff, but I was the only girl among 3 boys. So, there would be times where I'm like, this isn't fair. Like, why am I cooking and cleaning and doing the laundry and he's just chilling there? But what was great is that it kind of it taught me to be a mom. And I think that, without him being able to communicate that to me, that's kind of what he was trying to show me that life was like, you're gonna have to cook, you're gonna have to clean, you're gonna have to do dishes, you're gonna have to do laundry and fold. So he taught me all those lessons, or he taught me all those duties as, I don't even know how to explain it. But I love my dad. Like, I really do.
So you guys are cool now.
We're very cool. My dad's always been the type, when I was younger, he would always say, like, blood is blood, family's family. And I'm like, used to get so mad at him because I didn't really grow up with, my blood, my family. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I have friends that I'm closer to. I would say stuff like that all the time. But the one thing that I've learned about what he's said to me is that, like, my family, they've seen me grow and develop through kind of like all seasons of my life. And so they deeply know me. So when my dad was telling me that blood is blood, family is family, he was like, your family knows you in and out more than any friend or any relationship could ever know you. And, like, you have to remember that, like, no matter what's going on, like, your family is going to be here and we're going to love you regardless. And so when I got to a season in my life where I was hurt by friends and some of the relationships that I had been in, the people that were there to support me and be there for me were my family. And so it made me a very family person. How important it was, like, to, you know, spend quality time with my family and build, like, you know, if I can't have grace, mercy, and love for my own family, and if I can't forgive them when they hurt me, or communicate better with them, or not be as, like, short-tempered or hurt by things that they say, or try to, like, understand their intentions, then how am I supposed to navigate in the real world with other people that I'm not even blood related to? So he taught me that about myself, is that, you know, like, my dad is not a man of good communication and being able to explain what he means when he says stuff to me. It's kind of like I grow up and I get to a certain point in life and I'm like, oh, my dad meant this. My dad meant that. He's just a man of very few words. And he's really good at saying the wrong words, but the intention behind it is well-meaning. Yeah. It's just the way he communicates. It's not like the typical way of communication. It's not like, I'm going to explain myself. It's like, I said what I said. And then what you gain from that is literally all on your own. And then you find out over time, like, a lot of times there's a lot of miscommunication that way, when you can't really clarify on what the person's actually saying, you know? And in my household, there was a lot of that because, you know, there's a miscommunication and brokenness, like, between, you know, the Filipino culture and me, who was raised here in the United States and growing up with, like, kind of a diverse mentality and knowing that you communicate to people on different levels. My dad doesn't know that. My dad just communicates his way.
Your dad sounds like an engineer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. He's just, yeah, I love my dad though. He's awesome. I have a good relationship with him, and I like to, you know, before where I'd get angry at him because, you know, he was like, oh, you need to cut these vegetables, or you need to help me cook, or he would do all that, right? My dad taught me how to cook, and, you know, we live in in one house, but we've separated the house into 2 floors. So my parents currently live upstairs, and I have, like, my separate unit on the bottom half of the house. And my dad will come down like at 10 o'clock at night and knock on my door, and I'm like, hey, Dad. He's like, hey, what's for dinner? And I'm like, okay, come in. And so then, like, I just serve my dad food. Like, our relationship is like a relationship of very few words, but it's like, I like to take care of my dad by feeding him, because, like, that's like what I grew up, like, doing. It's like my dad would come look for me, and he's looking for, you know, he's looking for food. He's looking to be served. He's looking for, like, he's looking for something that before I used to feel bitter about giving him. And now I've learned that, like, that's my way of being able to love him, like, is by, you know, like, he's looking for that. Oh, like, in his brain, did I raise you to serve, like, and make me food and not complain and not, like, be a certain way? And in my brain, I'm like, okay, my dad he wants to come down here and spend time. He doesn't know how to talk very well. And all he wants is me to feed him. And in his mind, that's me loving him. And for me, I feel good because I'm like, I get to show my dad I love him in the way that, like, he understands love. Because it's not the same as, like, typical relationships that I feel like are here in the United States, like, in the American culture. It's like everybody, there's a certain way or certain way everybody has to be, where I feel like people who are from different cultures, I don't even know how to explain it. I feel like I should take a second to explain it. Where people from different cultures, they don't communicate the same way that we communicate in America. So I am very, like, understanding of, like, you know, in some cases people be like, why is your dad like that? that like harm you or whatever. And it's like, no, because my dad grew up differently. He has his own childhood experiences, and he was raised to believe and think a certain way. And so I'm very understanding to his views and beliefs, and I respect him and I love him regardless of whether or not, you know, I took something the wrong way. I know that him as a person, what his intention is, it's from a place of love, even if it hurts me. It's not like he's trying to hurt me. It's just from a place of love, and that's the only way that he knows how to be. And he wasn't raised to have like a growth mentality and you know, growing out of like an old-fashioned way of thinking, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. You know, one of the most popular scriptures in the Bible, right? It says, honor your father and mother. And it actually promises like a good life to the person who honors their father and mother.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's interesting because, you know, and I typically talk a lot with mostly young adults, right? I work with a lot of young adults at my college, you know, at my church. And it does seem that, at least right now in this time, there does seem to be a lot of tension between young people and their parents. You see a really big cultural shift happening right now where a lot of the values of our parents are very different than the new values that a lot of young people are adopting today. And you see the tension, and, you know, you see a lot of young people who really resent their parents, and for whatever reason, you know, whatever hurt and pain, I'm not, it's not for me to judge or say, you know, what's right and wrong, but I do realize there's a disconnect. And it seems like your experience, you've experienced a lot with your parents, a lot of good and a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. And you are now a mother as well. You are now a parent, and now you're on the opposite side of that, and you see.
There's no instruction guide. Okay. So that's why I have there's no right. I mean, there is one, you know, we have the Bible, you can, you know, live by that, but, you know, there's no explanation on if you do this, there's a possibility of your kid having anxiety or hurt or feeling like they have to suppress a feeling. Like, there's no instruction guide, like, there's no like do's and don'ts and what can be the instant, like, this is going to happen. And you don't really understand that until you have kids and they're growing up. And then when they start expressing, you know, things that you've done in the past that have hurt them. And I'm like, what? I thought I did everything right. I did the opposite of what my parents did. I thought you were going to turn out perfect. and then, you know, the reality hits, like, you know what? We're all human, and, you know, we're not perfect. Like, I feel like, you know, sin is a part of the human experience. Yeah. And it's kind of intertwined in, you know, the aspects of like our lives. And you can strive to be, you know, the best version of yourself, but, you know, there's always a part of you that doesn't understand that you might hurt somebody in the process by doing certain things. And, you know, how that can affect another person. And for me, all I can do is communicate. I'm like, I've found that, you know, the one thing that I lacked growing up and the disconnection from my parents was the lack of communication and being able to talk about my hurt, my pain. And then I experienced loss with my mom. And it's like, I don't even get the ability to talk about my hurt and pain. And so whenever I meet somebody who's having a hard time communicating with their, you know, dad, mom, they have a broken or hard relationship, my only advice that I give in those situations is, you know, I can't tell you that your hurt is invalid. And I'm not saying that by having a relationship or pursuing something with your parent is, you know, acknowledging that, you know, that they're right or you're wrong. It's like, it has nothing to do with whose pain, Like, who caused the pain, who's right and wrong in it, whose fault it is. Like, none of that stuff really matters. Like, and I feel like people forget that. And you don't realize it until the person that you love and you care about is gone, and you don't even get the opportunity to talk to them about the stuff that you're hurt about or that caused you pain. You don't even get to argue with them. You don't get to make up with them. You don't get to cry with them or laugh with them. Like, you really just lose that altogether. And so I'm like, it's more important to have a relationship with your parent. And, you know, and I really hold by just set up boundaries on, you know, if there's certain topics or if there's a certain point and you need to step away, but don't completely break a relationship with a parent. Like, have something, whether you're writing letters or whether you're having phone calls or whether you guys go out for lunch, like whatever the relationship can be, just have something, because when they're gone, there's a lot of regret that comes when you don't have access to that person anymore. And the only person that has to live with that is the person that's still living. You're going to live with that regret and that hurt and that pain. It's going to just be something that carries. And once you experience that loss, you look at relationships a lot differently. Like, maybe the thing that person did wasn't that big of a deal for you to not talk to them for months, or maybe what they said, you guys could just clear up the conversation, or you can just pray about it, pray for the person, pray for yourself, pray for a better understanding. Like, but don't give up on having whatever relationship that you can have with the people that you love and care about and that love and care about you, even if they don't know how to love you right.
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you this. What would you say to a parent, because there's a wide demographic that listens. What would you say to a parent who feels like they are losing their child, they're losing their relationship? For example, you talked a lot about when you were younger and your dad kept trying to be a part of your life, and in a sense you felt like he wasn't. You didn't understand everything that was going on, but, you know, a lot of the ways that you responded to that, I could see would make a parent feel like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my kid. Mm-hmm. You know, for someone here who's listening, who's genuinely concerned about their kid, and whether it's hey, we have different values, we're split in ways, I don't know how to get through to my child, what would you say to a parent listening who's struggling to connect with their child at that level?
I would just say never stop, because I feel like it's easy to feel like, oh, they're never going to talk to me again, or, you know, I can't fix this. But I don't feel like there's anything that can't be fixed. I don't feel like there's nothing that can't be talked about. It's really just comes down to, like, honestly, persistence. And it might be a long journey or a long road when it comes down to, like, healing. Maybe it's a few days, maybe it's a few weeks, maybe it's a few years, but not giving up on the person that's hurt, because a hurt person only thinks about hurting people. Whereas if you're a person and you really want to heal that relationship or fix that or kind of gain some type of control, I would just say be persistent, love them, pray for them, call them, text them, even if they don't reply, if it's emailing, writing a letter, sending a gift. If you're thinking of them, you see something for them, grab it, like drop it off. They might not respond, they might not appreciate it in the moment, but the one thing that I've learned about life is that we are all on a journey through our human experience, and we all experience things at different points. So maybe they're hurt in the moment, but you know, give it a few weeks, give it a few years, and you know, they lose someone, or I don't know, life really doesn't discriminate when pain is dished at you. And I feel like people who go through pain really start to understand how important the relationships and having healthy relationships are. I feel like it might take some time, but they'll come back. And that's one thing I understood about myself, is that I was navigating through life and I was hitting certain experiences, and those experiences helped me grow and develop as a mom, as a friend, as a daughter, as a child of God. Like, it just brought so much awareness to the fact that, I'm learning at a different rate than the people around me, and people around me are going to learn at a different rate than I'm learning. So yeah, just don't give up on the people that you love and you care about. And I feel like as a parent, that's probably the best way to love your child, is to not give up on them. God doesn't give up on us.
True.
So we got to have all that grace, mercy, and love that he gave us.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, Nicole, thank you for coming by today. Thank you for sharing your story. If you like this or if this spoke to you, please make sure that you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. We're also on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and share. It really helps us get the message out. But Nicole, thank you for coming by. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you for having me.
All right, till next time. Much love.
Bye.